Welcome back to Incorporate, the podcast for business owners presented by the UB School of Management Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership, where we explore the strategies and real-world decisions that help build stronger and more sustainable businesses. I'm your host, Susan Steffen, Executive Director of the UB Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership, and I'm joined as always by our producer, Jordan Lima of Lemur Studios. Today, we're talking about one of the fastest moving areas in business right now, marketing strategy in the age of artificial intelligence. Joining me today are two guests who bring very different but complementary perspectives on this topic. Chris Riley is the principal and creative lead at Parkway Digital, a digital marketing agency based here in Western New York. Chris and his team help businesses design and implement customized digital marketing strategies, from website design and content marketing to social media, digital advertising, and analytics. Also joining us is Celine Krizan, Clinical Assistant Professor of Entrepreneurship at the University of Buffalo School of Management. Celine teaches entrepreneurship and innovation courses and works closely with startups and emerging entrepreneurs to develop marketing strategies, product launches, and storytelling approaches that help businesses scale their ideas. She's also been leading efforts to help students and entrepreneurs experiment with AI tools to solve real business challenges. So today we're going to talk about how marketing strategy is evolving and how AI is changing the game for small businesses. Welcome, Chris. Welcome, Celine. Nice to have you with us today.
No problem. Excited to be here.
Okay, so we're going to start first because we know there's been a lot going on in the world, and marketing has changed dramatically in the last decade. So from your perspectives, what are the biggest shifts business owners should understand today? Chris, I want to start with you.
Technology has changed a lot. So, the days of sitting on like a desktop computer are sort of gone. So making sure you have a web platform, which is essentially your marketing foundation that works from a mobile device, that's really important. The next thing are the mediums themselves. So people search differently than they did before. It's not just Google, or Yahoo. It's people are on, ChatGPT or Claude, or they're on social platforms or TikTok. Understanding how those platforms actually work is, a huge shift to where we were, even 5 years ago.
What I would add to Chris is I think marketing used to all be about reach, and now it's about relevance. It's like, who are you getting in front of? It's not how many eyeballs. It's, am I getting the right eyeballs on my content? Am I creating stuff that people actually want to engage with? Or am I just, spilling out and posting on TikTok with something that isn't relevant? So everything is about who are you reaching and how efficiently are you doing that?
And just from the number of platforms you mentioned in that first question, because there's a lot going on there and it can feel overwhelming to small business owners. Like, I'm running a company. How do I have time to figure out all these different mediums? So where would be a place to start focusing your energy when it comes to marketing if you're a business owner who maybe doesn't have your own marketing specialist?
I mean, for me, it's really understanding who your target audience is and then where do they spend their time. If it's, if you're professional services, maybe, investing a ton of advertising or a ton of time into like Instagram doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's Google search. Whereas if you're a restaurant, things like TikTok or Instagram are more relevant than LinkedIn. So I think for me, it always starts with understanding, who your audience is and where do they spend most of their time.
And it's asking where are they going to ask questions to find your solution. So I always exactly what you said, Chris. I talk about where are your people hanging out online? I was just working with a makeup company and she was spending a lot of time on LinkedIn. And I was like, I'm not looking on LinkedIn to buy makeup, right? But maybe that's building your professional capability. But where do people spend their time? And she is now trying to become a master of TikTok. So something I also note is making sure you don't forget about your email list, something I think that is a little bit under talked about. Your email list you own. You don't own your reach on TikTok. You don't own your reach on Instagram, but you can always get in someone's inbox.
Yeah, I mean, having things that you have full control over, it's really important. We talked about that being the foundation. Right. So like you said, your email list, your like your website itself, and even just the way that you interact with your customers. I mean, these are all areas that you have full control over, and you can sort of create differentiation between others in the market based on how you handle those.
How do you know where your customers are getting their information? Like, how do I know that? If I have something I want to sell, I don't know if my customers are on TikTok or Instagram or...
It's thinking about from your use case. So where would I go if I wanted to start looking for this this product, this project? What would I need to build trust with that person? So if I'm buying from a B2B business, I want to look at their Google reviews. I want to see them on LinkedIn and having credibility. And then B2C, where am I looking? Who am I following online? Who am I following on Instagram? To make sure I think about where they're going. But I also even say then ask your customers, right? Talk to them. How did you find me? Why did you choose us? Taking a minute to do that will give you just incredible amounts of information. And it's priceless to be able to see because there's things that might surprise you.
Yeah, for sure. And that's things like even analytics itself, why it's so important to have that implemented properly. You can try, I mean, that's the beauty of like digital marketing is you can actually just throw stuff at the wall and see if it works. But with advanced analytics, you can track that effectively now. I mean, you can do tracking phone numbers. You can look at Google Analytics, see what people are searching for, call tracking on your website. Like there's so many ways to pull in data. It kind of gives you a roadmap of like what's working and what's not. And I know we're not getting into AI yet, but the automation has allowed us to pull more complicated reports quicker. So someone who may not be as technically savvy can now set something up or generate a report out of a platform that will sort of dumb it down. So I can say, okay, I'm spending money on this, or I'm on this medium, or I'm getting nothing from here. It helps you sort of make decisions a little bit easier. It's not complicated. I mean, marketing really isn't complicated. It's just understanding the data and following where the positive signs are and trying to step back from the stuff that just isn't measuring.
I tell business owners also, like, start simple. Like, pick two, right? You don't need to be the master of Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and everywhere. Yeah. Just show up where you think is your best bet to get started and then leverage and grow from there and learn.
And Celine, I want to go back to some definitions. You mentioned B2B and B2C. Tell us what that means.
Okay, B2B means I, as a business owner, I'm selling to other businesses. I'm trying to attract in that space. B2C is where we're saying I'm selling to consumers. I'm going direct to those people who are buying my products.
And those mediums and the strategies involved are very different, depending if I'm – and sometimes companies are some of each, right, a blend of each. But they have to know where a business customer goes, and they have to know where a personal customer goes to look for information about this product or service.
And what language they speak, what credibility they're looking for, that really is the name of the game.
Is there any services that like sort of everyone's just there? And I think it used to be, and it's dying in this capacity, but I think at one point, like everyone's going to be on Facebook in some regard. So even if it's professional, like you'll catch them over there. As that sort of fades out, is Instagram that platform where like lots and lots of people are using Instagram? You can catch a business person on Instagram pretty easy or not. Like, is it not that way?
I always sort of look at it from two different perspectives. The first one is how active are you going to be? So if a client approaches me and say, I'm a law firm, should I be on Instagram? Well, I mean, do you have the time to manage that platform? If you do, then sure. Like it's the barrier to entry is low. You can easily set up an account. And if you have relevant content that you want to post, then post it. But what I tell people is if you're not going to manage that properly, don't have it at all. Because what you don't want is someone, if they do stumble upon you on Instagram, you haven't posted in 4 years, it looks like your business isn't relevant anymore. And then there are ones, like Facebook that everyone is on that you just create sort of like a baseline posting schedule. It's good to be there. But yeah, I mean, like you had mentioned, focusing on like, not every platform is a fit for every business. So I think the idea of you need to be on everything because now there are way more than there were before. I think that methodology has maybe taken a backseat a bit.
I do think there are two good ways, though, to build credibility in that space. And it's outside of social media. I think everyone needs a website, right? You need to have a website. You need to claim your Google profile on like your Google business page. And you need, I would say, an email address. Like it shouldn't be like CelineCrazan@gmail.com or CelineMarketing@gmail. Have it like Celine at CKM Marketing. You can do something as cheap as $10 a month through Google. It gives instant credibility that I'm not just talking to someone who's doing this as a side hustle. Right. It gives you credibility to be able to have your own email account. And you can set up other, sub accounts, info at. It, again, builds that knowledge and that expectation that I'm taking you seriously and you're taking me seriously.
Well, and that's the beauty of the web is, you can be a one-person show and build like a really effective digital platform. You've got a really professional website. You've got a full email structure. And you could look more relevant than one of your competitors that might be way bigger that just is a little bit more outdated. That's really, really big. And why we always say, like, you should refresh your website every few years just so you look relevant. Because, again, if someone's doing a search for fill in the blank business, if you're comparing, again, nothing, comparing one website to the other website, if one of them looks more professional or looks like they have it together more, the odds are they're going to reach out to that person first. So it really sort of levels the playing field. The idea of like, I need to spend a ton of money on television to be relevant in a specific industry, those days are gone. So it's nice for small businesses to be able to instantly create credibility, but it's also a threat to like older businesses that don't properly invest in those mediums.
Well, I know just when I've looked for different services personally, the first thing I do is go to the website. And then if I click on like info here and it says link broken, I'm like, I'm done. Like I don't go any further.
Yeah.
And because I think, they're not really either real or they're not really a good business. So people maybe ought to do that to their own websites and their own, whatever their customer journey is to make sure it does look relevant. Because same thing, if you've got an Instagram that nobody's following or you have never posted, it just looks sad.
And you can ask AI to help you with that. You can literally say, go to this website, evaluate it from X customer perspective, and tell me what you think. You can I even suggest to business owners to type in, like, tell me about this business based in Buffalo, New York, and see what information it gives you. It's going to be insightful. It'll be interesting to see what AI scrapes and what AI is pulling. And it can also be an insight for you to say, oh, maybe I need to lean into this opportunity. Maybe I need to do X, Y, Z to my website to show up a little bit more.
And can AI help you create that website?
Hell yeah. Yes, it can. Chris and I were just talking about how incredible Claude Code is. There's a lot of different tools. I mean, I think every website host now has their own AI builder out there. You can't go wrong with whatever tool you use, but think about it from simplicity. What pages do I need to get up? How do I have a homepage, an about page, and a contact page? Don't think that you have to build 20 blog posts right now. Get posted, get there, and then continue to scale.
So I think what I'm hearing both of you say is it's more important to pick what you're going to commit to than to try to be everywhere.
Yeah,
because we want to do a few things well rather than a lot of things poorly.
Right. And again, because your target audience might not be everywhere. Right. So if you're spending, there's only so many hours in the day. So if you're spending effort trying to get to, focus on an area that no one's going to see it anyway, what's the point?
So I want to go back to, because Chris, you mentioned a really good point about analytics. And what I see a lot of business owners I'll look at a small business that has a very small budget, and they'll tell me how they spent $5,000 in this one medium marketing, which for them is a top expense. And I'll say, well, how did that work out for you? And they have no idea. Right. So what are we doing wrong with analytics? Because it's really easy to go spend money on Facebook and LinkedIn and do all these boosted posts and these ads. And I know the lovely people that do print and commercials and TV and billboard, they're always after you to spend money and telling you all the wonderful things you're going to get. How do you know if it does? How do you know whether your marketing's actually working?
I mean, as entrepreneurs, we have the fault in our personality trait that we think we can do everything and we can't. So I see that a lot where the owner, let's say, I'm looking at the analytic reports, or I'm the one setting all these things up, or I'm running the Google Ads campaign. I think it's important in these instances, especially when you're spending money, to leverage partnerships, whether it's a consultant or a different agency, someone that does this for a living. That I think has a lot to do with it. If you're just like on a whim, I talk about a lot like vanity metrics, right? I'm spending money here, or I'm spending money there because I think that I should, as opposed to like spending the time or hiring someone to actually set up the data properly so that you can make educated decisions. I think it's complicated. It might be a little bit intimidating for business owners to actually dive in and then be able to potentially look at this and say, like, nothing I'm doing is working. So it's easier to say, I spend money on commercials, or, I boost posts on Facebook. Okay. But if you don't have tracking in place, how do you verify that that's actually working? So, I think a big thing for business owners is like understanding where you need help and then looking for the help to leverage that.
And I think that the tracking somehow has to lead to dollars too. Because I know, we did a marketing campaign once, and the lovely folks who did it for us told me how successful it was because of all the impressions I got. Yeah. But I didn't get people.
No.
I didn't get people in the seats for what I was doing. And so it was like, it's great. It's a lot of noise and people seeing things, but I need people to then, whip out their credit card kind of thing.
Yeah, I get frustrated as like an agency owner with that because I understand everyone has a job to do. And, like a salesperson might be looking at like, I'm going to sell you like these radio ads or send you these television ads. We've seen before where on like a radio campaign, they'll want access to Google Analytics to be able to see the traffic within like an hour before, or like during the commercial and then after. And then they'll be like, we validate, like, look at all these people that visited your website. Who cares? And again, you don't know that they came from your radio. It's anyone could sort of cook the books and make a report that makes it look positive. What we tell people is forget about the impressions, forget about all that stuff. Focus on conversions, whether that's sales or lead gen, period. That's what you should be focusing on. Impressions and all of that is helpful information to have, but it shouldn't be your North Star. You should be focusing on what the purpose of the business is, to make money. So how do you make money? Is it through lead gen if you're a service base, or is it through sales? That's really the only number that you should be looking at and optimizing towards, in my opinion.
And if you're talking to an agency, you should ask them those questions. What numbers are we optimizing for? And if they say impressions, your red alert should go off, because that's a problem.
Right.
You want to talk about conversions. You want to talk about qualified leads. You want to understand how they're actually measuring and being able to measure it. I would also say, I totally agree. Get an agency, get an expert, but also see where you can make yourself an expert. Mm-hmm. Learn Google Analytics. And if you have someone setting it up for you, don't completely delegate it away. You need to have some understanding, someone on your team to have an ability to be able to look at that so you can start making really good decisions to optimize.
For sure. And I think in that, like, when I'm talking about hiring someone, it should, like you said, have someone set it up. Maybe someone manages it for you. But yeah, the owner or the key decision maker should absolutely be dialed in. I mean, that is important because, again, anyone could make a report look good. And if the end user making the decisions doesn't really understand it, then all you're doing is relying on trust, which can get, a little hairy.
And the way I learn it, I literally screenshot my screen, I upload it to Claude, and I say, please explain this to me, right? Walk me through the key steps. What am I missing? Tell me a little bit about this. And it will break it down for you and give you a little more confidence next time you look at it.
For sure.
For the benefit of the listener here, just give us a rundown on impressions versus conversions and what that means.
So an impression would be if, let's talk on the social platform, for example, someone sees your ad or sees your post. That's considered an impression. Advertising, someone sees your ad somewhere. A click would be if someone actually took action, so clicked on it. Social calls it engagement, so that's either like a comment, or a click. But a conversion is someone actually completing the desired action. So it would be if I'm running an ad campaign and I run an ad and you see it, that's an impression. If you click on it, that's a click. But if you come to my website and you actually fill out a lead gen form, that's considered a conversion. Now, it could be forms on a site. It could be phone calls. You can do tracking systems for like phone calls. It could be like an e-commerce purchase. Whatever you set, it could be a white paper download. Like that's a conversion too. It's really just the conversion is the action based on whatever goals you're trying to achieve.
So it's not necessarily a sale. It's just they do what you're hoping they'll do.
Right. Yeah. And in the campaign themselves and the user funnel and all of that should be built around what that goal is. So it's, doing an ad campaign, sending someone to like a homepage is like, it keeps me up at night when people do that. You're not going to convert because, again, you need to drive people. Like, you are here. This is what I want you to do. And that's why design comes into web development. Like, that's all these things play a role. But to answer your question, a conversion is someone finishing that specific action.
Okay, excellent.
And lead gen can be a ton of different things.
Yeah.
And I think people, as entrepreneurs, we don't think about that. A lead gen could be a coupon. It could be sign up for our email list and get to our VIP awards, right? A lead gen could be a white paper. A lead gen could be a workshop. A lead gen could be a newsletter. There's a lot of different ways, but what we need to think about is how do I capture your information? How am I giving you value of something you want? And then I get value in return as the business owner to be able to contact you again and see if I can sell to you and help you.
And I know part of, and we had a really good podcast that we recorded here, the first one we're doing for season 2, where we talked about sales. And I think it ties very closely to what we're talking about here, because part of the question is you're spending this money and time doing your marketing and hoping it's effective, but are you following the customer journey through? So if you ask them, you put a post on social media and you say, click here to do whatever, to register now or to do that, then have you clicked there? And when they go, is the thing that you're asking them to do, is it accurate? Is it correct? Is it leading to the thing that you want? And sometimes I think we kind of focus so much on the first step and making sure the posts are right that we forget about the follow through.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about expectation, right? If you click on something, that you'll see that with bounce rate, right? If someone's clicking on a link and they go to a website, whether it's organic or through an ad campaign, and what they're expecting to see is not what they see right when they load that page, they leave.
Right.
So you've got such a small fraction of time to convince them to stay and to continue reading that, it's really important to look at these things from an outside perspective of, if I came here and I had no idea what I'm doing or what I'm trying to sell or what I'm trying to sort of convey, does someone know immediately? And if they don't, then you need to really focus on the copy and the verbiage and the structure so that it properly conveys exactly what the expectation is.
So it makes sense to you, but you need to make sure it makes sense to the
Right,
person
yes.
who's not you.
Yeah, you see a lot, we see this a lot like in the professional industry, like legal, for example, where like attorneys think a certain way. So they'll want to use more technical words, right? Than if someone was, disabled and needed someone to help them file for disability, right? An attorney's perspective might use like SSDI, right? But someone at the end of the day is just, I need help, right? So
Yes.
understanding, you have to be able to step back from, this is the way that I talk, or this is my perspective, and think about like, how does the end user engage with this content?
The example I was thinking of when you just said that was if I'm on Instagram or something like that, you see a product, you click on it, and you just go to a homepage, and it's not like the product page
Yes,
specifically.
right, yeah.
To
You're
buy
like,
it.
now I have to find this
Yeah,
thing?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what,
yeah,
right.
what was
Yeah,
it
I'm
even
out.
called? Yeah. Like a shoe website is like, I got to find this shoe now on this page, and you just go away. You don't,
Right.
you don't
Right.
follow through.
And that makes honestly, just something like that, it makes such a huge difference. And it's so easy to just think about these things through ahead of time and understand like that whole customer journey away from like, oh, I'm the business owner, so I understand everything. Just really sort of stepping back and pretend like you have no idea what you're looking at.
And think about it from who does it well, right? Think about the websites you really like, be it competitors, be it Nike, right? What do you really like that's working, and what can you take into your own website? And 80-20, right? Copy paste.
A lot of people that I encounter that are business owners will say something like, oh, I tried advertising or I tried marketing and it didn't work for me. And it's like, how long does it take to gain traction? What instant results should people expect? What instant results should people not expect? And like how does keeping consistent with it help over time?
I mean, for our customers, we typically will start small and scale. So I would never, if someone came in off the street and said, I'm looking to do this, I wouldn't say, all right, let's spend a ton of money on search, a ton of money on social, let's do some TV advertising or some pre-roll video. That's usually not our approach. We want to really look at the foundation. What's the user experience like when someone hits, again, the website? Is the foundation set up properly? Do we have proper analytics in place? And a lot of times, it's not as exciting, but we typically will start with just Google search. Like that is kind of like the baseline of any marketing campaign, in my opinion, only because the only people that you're paying for clicking your ad are people who are actively looking for what you're offering, right? So on a Google ad campaign, we typically will tell clients, like, do not look at any of these numbers for 3 months. Now, we'll know if something's not working right away, we'll know within a couple of weeks. But it takes time to optimize. Like that's the other thing too, like not understanding these platforms, how they work. You need someone to be able to look at these things and say, okay, yeah, I might be driving a lot of clicks, but is it driving conversions? So being able to dial into the numbers and really say, okay, these keywords or these campaigns are driving a lot of traffic, but not a lot of sales, whereas these other campaigns might drive very little traffic, but the ones that show up do convert. Understanding what you're looking at, you can allocate the funds from one into the other. But I think it really just depends on each medium, like how long that runtime is. But for us, we typically say about 3 months until you're actually like up and running at 100%.
I also would add, I think you need to think about what is your price point of what you're selling. So I was working with a business owner who was selling a course and it was $8,000 and she was frustrated her LinkedIn ads weren't converting. I was like, would you buy something for $8,000 from a LinkedIn ad, right? Where are you building that additional trust? What's that funnel? How are you bringing people in? And they're not just aware of it, but they trust you and they want to buy. And now they're converted and they're excited and they've built that trust with you in the company. So I think it's thinking about what is my price point? What am I willing to test? And then running those tests, and that search is huge. Making sure people can find you is sometimes just the beginning, and then making sure that they're part of your journey and your community.
Well, and Celine, I think what you're touching on there is a difference between marketing tactics and marketing strategy. Yes. And I feel like very often when we talk to business owners and they see something's not working, it's because they've tried something, but the something wasn't part of a bigger strategy. It was just, hey, you know what? The guy came and called on me and they had a really good deal on these billboards. So I put these billboards up and then I just didn't get anybody. And who knows whether the website was ready, whether the phone calls were ready, whatever it was. So how do you get business owners to make that shift from tactics to having a strategy behind it?
So when we're thinking about strategy, it's what am I really trying to achieve? And really thinking at the big picture, what are my goals? How do I think long term? How am I not just thinking about next week in this product, but I'm thinking about the next year and having those big conversations and those big goals. And then we focus in on the how and the what. So how do we do it? How do we get there? You want to build your email list? Why do you want to build your email list? What are you trying to achieve with that? What are our goals there? And then we dig into, okay, here's how we do it. Maybe it's an Instagram campaign. Maybe we do a giveaway. Maybe we have some of those pieces. But it's thinking about the why and then the how and the what we do. Sometimes we focus so closely and so quickly on what do I do? Where do I start? I'm going to start right now and I'm going to post on Instagram and then I'm going to post the next hour. I'm going to learn TikTok rather than saying, no, what am I really trying to achieve here? I want to get more people in my store. Okay, we want to get more people in your store. How many people are coming now? Where are they coming from? Why are they in the store? What do they buy? Then we can dig into, let's get more foot traffic.
And how can AI help me do that?
We can have this conversation with AI. I wish I had my phone. I'd pull it out right now.
To be a strategic partner, because sometimes those are big thoughts that I don't have anybody to talk to at my company.
And that's what Chris and I were talking about on our way in, is how do I use this as a thought partner, as something to bounce ideas off of? It's not always going to give you the perfect answers, but especially if it's an area that you feel like you need more information in, that you need advice in, it's a good place to start. I like to give AI a role that it's going to play. So I say, act as my marketing strategist. Here's a little bit about my business. Here's my goals of what I'm trying to do. Let's build out a strategic plan and some marketing tactics that I could achieve within the next month. I give it constraints. So I'm not saying I have $20,000 to spend. Maybe I have $1,000. Maybe I have $500. Maybe it's just me as a solopreneur. I give AI that context because the more context you give it about you and your business and your goals, the better answers it will give. And I would say the less generic advice you're going to get. What would you say?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this, artificial intelligence platforms are non-deterministic, meaning they will give you a different answer if you give it the same prompt. You need to really understand when you're asking it for feedback or looking at something, it's an extra set of eyes. Some of the suggestions it'll give you could be garbage, right? But understanding, okay, here's a blind spot, or I didn't really think about that. Mm-hmm. Kind of taking each thing not as absolute, but as a grain of salt. And I know as humans, we want the answer, and that's just not what these systems do without context and without framework. So, for example, we've used Claude. I love Claude, but I'll give it guidelines. I'll give it markdown files listing my top 15 competitors. I'll do the research. I'll identify what my competitors actually are. And I'll say, these are my competitors. I want you to look at these competitors. And then it will give you consistent information because it's not just assuming these things. So the more context and instruction you give it, the better the results are going to be. But again, you have to understand that none of it is absolute, but it's an extra set of eyes, that's kind of acting as a consultant, to sort of give you information that you may have not.
So you could send in your example, here's the links to my top 5 competitors and throw them into whatever your AI product is and said, compare these to my website and see, give you some ideas, right? So you might not like all the ideas, but it's going to make you hopefully think about stuff.
Right, yeah. We'll do it where it'll say, give me my, opportunities and my threats, right? Do a SWOT analysis, based on these 5 competitors in my business itself. And it'll do that. And it's good at doing that. And some of the, like I said, some of the suggestions might not be great, but it will kind of open your eyes to certain things that we're so in the business, it's hard for us to sort of step outside. It's helpful in that sense, I think, hugely.
So, Celine, if I'm a business owner who maybe I know what I want, okay, and I have an idea of the platform. So maybe I've identified that my audience loves TikTok and Instagram or whatever it is. And so I have an idea of what I need to do. How can AI help me actually create the content?
So I use AI as a content ideator, and then also I do have it write some content with a caveat that you need to give it context to how you write, because it's sometimes going to spit back out generic emoji-filled joy. It's gotten better, and I will say probably by the time this podcast episode comes out, it'll be even better. The more information you can give it, so the more examples of if you have newsletters that you've written, if you have posts that you really like, if you have tones of voice, upload that to AI and ask it to give you a description of your tone of voice for your business. That's something that then you can copy and paste, you can come back to, you can keep adding into, and even saving it into a file. So it's something that, again, as you get more complex, as you get more, you can build something with Claude Cowork, and it can actually navigate to that file. But to keep us simple, create a tone of voice for you and your business, upload that, and then give it some context of tell it your goals, tell it the profile and the patterns where you want to go, where do you want to show up, and ask it to build you a schedule. You don't need to post every single day of the week. Let's start with something consistent. Let's start by showing up once or twice a week. Let's be there. Let's make sure the content works and is good. And as you learn and as you see more, you learn what people engage with. And then you're going to go back to AI and say, hey, this post performed really well. Let's talk about why. Let's talk about who liked it. Let's build more content in this way. I think about how do I educate customers? How do I sell to them? But also how do I teach them so they want to keep coming back to me and I'm positioning myself and my company as an expert.
So I want to go further on that because you talked about expertise. And one of the things I've been told, Chris, you can tell me if this is true or not, but the more rich your content is on whatever it is, on your social media, your website. So you have blogs and you have videos and you have testimonials, that the more likely you are to come up on a search or something that somebody is trying to find you. So if you're a business owner who does whatever it is, you own a plumbing business or you're an HVAC person, how do you show that you're good at what you do? Like, where should you be talking about your company's expertise, not just something fun and light?
So I think there's two different ways to approach that. The first one, in terms of like volume, doesn't always translate. So having a ton of blogs on your website that are written in a tone that doesn't align with what people are searching for will never rank. No one will ever see them. So you can have 1,000 blogs, but if they don't say anything of value, no one will ever see it. So it's not just like volume. It's about really understanding what people, again, going back to the analytics, what are people searching for? What are their values? What are their needs? And then writing content that essentially answers those questions or sort of, fills that in for them. That will help you show up more. And again, I think the relevance, it becomes like, oh, okay, this person actually understands what they're talking about. In terms of how do you get across the idea that you're good at what you do, I think it goes back to the human piece of just like reviews and referrals. That's a thing that we haven't really mentioned here in terms of like marketing strategy, but it's easier to upsell to an existing client or ask for a referral from an existing client with a relationship that you already have than it is to try to get a new one, right? So, really pushing people to fill out just simple review your Google Business Platform, or if there are other like Angie, or if you're in construction, these types of things, like really pushing people to share those human experiences that as us humans look for someone who I have a need for something, that you've got something who you can relate to from a human to human element. And I think that's a big piece of kind of driving that, like, oh, I will rely on these people, or I'm confident that they're going to do a good job.
And I think in the rise of AI, we're seeing social media also go back a little bit more to authenticity. So your post doesn't have to be perfect. Your video doesn't have to be like the highest, best video. You can take it on your phone. Being able to show up authentically is critical, but encouraging your customers to also share that story, to celebrate the storytelling, and rewarding them when they do it. So if someone leaves you a Google review, go on there and reply. Be like, Thanks so much. Thanks for sharing. Or gamify it a bit. Say, if you leave a review, we pick a $25 gift card every month. Or if you do a referral, find ways to encourage the behaviors that get you the customers in the door that you want, and it will blossom from there.
Yeah, I do think that there's going to be a swing in the
agree.
other direction. I think, AI is awesome, but it's easy for everyone to create stuff very quickly, and it creates a lot of slop. And when everyone is using ChatGPT to write their LinkedIn posts, like I can't personally, I don't want to go on a rant, I hate LinkedIn. And it's because I go on there and everyone's proud and everyone says the same thing. And I think it's because everyone, you go on, oh, this is what everyone's talking about. This is what I need to talk about. But whether they're using AI or not, if everyone's using the same platform to do the same thing, it all looks the same. So your opportunity is to be unique, which is to be human and share those human experiences. And, I think there's going to be a big opportunity for that in the next 5 years or so.
I agree.
Swinging back into that leveraging AI for what it's good for, but not, I'm going to use it to generate all my stuff, because then you're just going to blend in with everybody else.
And I think as business owners, we think that everyone thinks about every single post we post. They don't, right? They see moments, they see clips, they see highlights. So you want to say something more than once.
Right.
You want to say the same thing a few different ways, and that's okay. It's not repetitive. It's helpful to the people who are following you because you have a consistent message. So showing up and trying and testing some things out gives you the freedom to see what works.
I've encouraged people that are less corporate to use LinkedIn because they might say, oh, well, my service doesn't really apply to that. I'm like, well, it's different and it's fun and it's out of the
and you
norm.
Apply, right?
Well,
yes.
Yeah, it's out of the norm of what you said. I'm so proud of my accomplishments. Look at what I did.
Right.
It's something different and fun. And as those people who do use that platform, though, see something different and fun, it stands out to them.
Absolutely.
What about we haven't said this word at all. Reddit. What are your thoughts on Reddit? Because the only person I see locally that advertises on Reddit is AAA of Western New York or whatever.
They're always there.
They're there, and they do. I think it works for them because they're ear to the street on go where people are, right? I don't see anyone else doing that except for them.
Yeah, Reddit advertising is fairly new, and we honestly haven't had a ton of customers that have been interested in it yet. I think it's going to be the next thing in terms of, again, that human piece that I'm not talking to like a bot. Like people go to Reddit and have real conversations. You don't know who you're talking to. It's very rare that their username is their actual name. Like it creates that it's more, what's the word? Like I would say it's more real than like a constructed or designed response or a brand or whatever. So if you see someone in that space from advertising or even just from like a commenting perspective, it feels more authentic.
I think it's also a good place to scrape for common questions, common complaints, common stories to inspire you for content you should make. So if you see a lot of people being like, oh, I don't know how to do X, Y, Z, then guess what? I'm going to make a video on how to do X, Y, Z. I would say the one thing I'm careful about on Reddit is like people are very sensitive to self-promotion. Sure. So if you're a business and you show up, you're like, hey, look at this link. This is me. Just making sure you're aware of the community you're in because it's its own, everyone has their own little rules and areas, but there's a lot to learn on Reddit, and I agree with you. I think there's a lot of untapped opportunity.
Yeah.
What's funny, it's just like on LinkedIn when people post something kind of personal Facebook issue, you get the, the people jump on them like, that's not here. That's not what this is for.
Yeah.
So yeah, knowing your audience. I want to go back to something you guys said though, because I think it's really important that we pull it out a little bit. We tend to focus marketing on getting new people to know our products or services. And we forget that we have a bunch of people who probably loved us because they have been our customers and they've bought from us that we never go back after. So how does getting more from your either current or past customers, where does that fit into marketing strategy for a business owner? And how do we capitalize on that without sounding fake?
I think it comes into, as a business, really understanding like what your value proposition is. And for me personally, it's, for Parkway, we were talking about this before, like there's not a ton of opportunity from an automation standpoint for the way that we run Parkway because it's really human focused, right? People can email anyone on the team. You get to know each other on a human level. So from our customers, like there's a lot of conversation. We do separate emails for like emails that go out monthly that are more like education based for our existing clients as opposed to just the general that everyone gets. We do things like if we launch a site for a client, sometimes we'll send them a birthday cake a year later just to, hey, like happy birthday, like your website's, a year old. Like there's different opportunities just to kind of create that and build that relationship, which again drives referrals, which can help grow your business. Every business is different. Some are, churn and burn. But if you're a business that but revolves around like potential repeat business, it's important to sort of, build that relationship with your customers. But like you had mentioned, like gamify those reviews. There's a lot of different things that you can do. And again, just step back and think about what would be nice if a business did that for me, right?
Yes.
I don't need a pen with a logo on it, right?
Right.
Well, and I think top of mind is a piece of it, because I know I did a landscape project, and then and I forget when I did it in the summer, and in the spring I got an email and they said, did you know that these whatever kind of bushes that you're supposed to prune these back? And I was like, I didn't
useful.
know that. And then in conversation with my husband going, hey, we got to prune these. He's like, hey, did you call them about Project B that now we want to start? And it was just top of mind. Maybe I would have gotten there, but it kind of prompted me. And that's what it always makes me think, why don't more businesses do that? Because I found that so unusual that it surprised me. And I'm like, well, why should it be that unusual?
But Susan, I love that because it ties into how do we get customers? We focus a lot on that as entrepreneurs. How do I get more people in the door? But how do I keep them and how do I grow them? I was working with someone who owns a farmer's market, and he saw a lot of older people coming in. And what he realized by talking to a few of them, that they're birders. He wasn't selling anything for birders in the store. But guess what he started doing? Selling stuff for birders in his store. So he could grow, right? They're not just coming in to buy fruit. Now they're coming in because there's other things that they're already buying, and we can save them a stop. So thinking about what's the next problem your customers have, or what's the next service you could provide them. There's a really great book. It's about the hospitality industry, but it's called Unreasonable Hospitality. And it's just incredible thinking about how do you surprise and delight your customers. And that's a beautiful moment where they probably scheduled that email. Right. They knew you should prune them in whatever the fall. Right. It was cued to you and it was sent. That's just thinking a little bit ahead. That's also where our girl AI can help you. Think about how AI can say, here's what I sell. How could I surprise and delight my customers, and build a process and a system around it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a good example of automation. We talk about automation in terms of AI, but these systems have existed for years, right? So MailChimp is perfect at that. And you can create, have the content, again, thinking about that customer journey, scheduling those things at relevant times to sort of provide value to the customer, but also be like, hey, we're still here.
Right.
These are all things when you're talking about kind of like focusing on your existing client base, ways to create those touch points that add value, not just for the sake of it showing up in an inbox.
So Salim, we've talked a lot about all the good things that AI can do for us. Share how we're doing it wrong when it comes to marketing.
Next question. Yeah. What are the pitfalls?
Like where are we messing up with AI, or what should we be wary of?
I think we can be wary. Chris talked a lot about thinking about the research. When you put something in, you're always going to get something different out, right? Think of it as a little bit of an unpredictable intern. Some days you're going to get something that's incredible that you're blown away with, and you're like, wow, I could never make something as good as this. Some days you're not going to get something as high quality. So knowing a little bit of that. Also knowing that there's a learning curve. So if you used AI a year ago and you're like, it didn't work the way you wanted it to, and you haven't used it since, it's a lot different now. So continuing to keep it in your process and continuing to test and see where it can help you is really useful. What I would also say is sometimes I think as entrepreneurs, like you said, we think we can do everything and we think we can learn every AI system. You don't need to learn every AI system. Find what works for you. Find what helps saves you time, and then continue to add on those skills as you go and as you grow and scale.
But if you're a busy business owner who can't maybe afford to hire outside help just yet, or maybe you're not at that point, it can be that intern,
that agent. Yes.
that agent to help you, as long as you recognize that it's in the end you still have to check it,
and you're the human in the loop.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that I can't stand that we're seeing a lot with AI is like the graphics. I know like Google Nanoband is really, really good in terms of creating imagery, but again, a lot of it seems inauthentic to me, and me personally, and maybe because I can identify because I'm a designer and I know what something real looks like versus something not. But if I'm going through like Instagram or somewhere, and I can tell, oh, that was like AI generated, or it is, it's an AI video or whatever, I immediately just completely scroll past it. I'm big on like aesthetics and making the brand look professional, and I have yet to see in real use case, not like a hype video on Instagram about look at all these great things that you can do. Maybe I'm just bad at it, but I haven't been able to see something that, without spending a ton of time on prompts, that it would generate something that I would consider like client ready. The amount of time that I know that it can do it if you're good and you spend a lot of time creating that context. But for me, being unique as a designer, I can just design it faster than I would spend. You
have that skill set.
Right. I was testing it around with like social graphics using Claude. So I uploaded, the brand, all the color palettes, fonts, everything that you'd have for like, a brand guide. And I asked it to output just some text-based social graphics, and they were fine. They weren't like horrible, but for like our clients or like for our brand, we would never use it. But again, it goes back to who are you, who's your client base, and how far along are you in the process? So if you're a solo business owner and you just need content, leverage that. But as you get further down the pipeline, like don't hire a designer to build you like a $10,000 site when you first start the business. That's crazy. But as you get more successful and let's say you want to reach more people or you want to see more authentic, then almost step backwards and get into that more human piece of it, I think.
It's kind of funny now in people's LinkedIn profiles, the photos. I'm like, wait, I know that person. They don't
Yes.
look like that.
Right.
You know, everybody's kind of got this filtered look,
Right.
and it's
Because it's easy to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I get it. Like, it's easy to do. But to me, at least mentally, I see that stuff and I immediately just move past it.
Right, the trust.
Yeah.
I wonder how much. I'm glad to hear this from people because I'm in an industry of
Yeah,
recording real people doing real things.
Right.
So at its core, what we do at Lemur Studios is documentary style. So that would be pretty weird if it went to AI. That would be strange. The fun stuff we do, the stuff that would have actors involved in that's in danger zone of that. So the perception that people have when they see something AI and they just sort of scroll past it is a very palpable thing. And younger generations, I think, a lot are pretty turned off by AI also. So I don't know, you're saying that you may see a major shift the opposite
Yeah,
way.
I mean, I think from a marketing perspective, I think so. Yeah, I mean, there's a platform called Relume that works with ChatGPT, and you can build a website in Figma, and you literally just type in the information that you want for it to, this is the information about my business, and it'll create a website, and that's cool. But they all look the same, right? There's nothing dynamic about that, and eventually everything looks the same, and then your opportunity is by doing something different. I think the operations, the repeatable tasks add a ton of value from an AI perspective, but I think from like a marketing materials, the one thing AI can't duplicate is the human experience. So I do think that there'll be a shift back so that you can differentiate like this is real versus, I scheduled this to post,
So Lemur Studios website, I used to do web development a long time ago, and we hadn't updated our website in a very long time. It may have been like 10 years. It was on WordPress platform, and it got to the point where it just wasn't functioning anymore the way you'd want a website to function. It took a very long time to load. It was very problematic, and I had some base knowledge of web development and how that goes, and decided to, using just ChatGPT, it wasn't Claude or anything, redo it. It still took a very long time to get it to be the way I wanted to. And one of the problems I found that way was it could code over my head, so I couldn't fix it if it was doing something wrong. And I had to try to explain to it what it's doing wrong. And so you're in this loop with a computer trying to tell it, make this box smaller, make the bounding box. And it ended up taking weeks to do still. It wasn't just a magic bullet. And I think to some people, they say, maybe it made a website. There it is. It's fine. But if you want it to be a good website, it's still going to take a lot of time. And then the knowledge of hosting and how you're going to get all that stuff done, it still does take experts or a lot of sweat equity if you're going to use it right.
For sure.
I do think, though, that we can disrupt a little bit of the expertise. So, like a solo business owner could get up a pretty good website without having to pay one of us at this table. And I think that's okay. But I think that there are things that we all need to remember that you don't want your website to look all the same. So learning some of that expertise as you go is critical. But sometimes it's like, let's just get something up. Done is better than perfect is a little bit of some of the mantra. Yeah,
for sure. We get that. Like I'll get calls from our sweet spot is not like startup businesses. Like the way that we build our sites, it's expensive, and like a small site is like a 5-page site for us it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because just our structure, whether you build a 5-page site or you build a 500-page site, it takes the same amount of time to design. It takes the same amount of time to launch it. So as the site gets bigger, it gets spread out, it becomes more palatable. But like a 5-page site, I'll get calls like, I just started a new company. Can you build me a website? And I'll say, yeah, but don't hire us to do that. Like there are platforms out there. You can use Squarespace. You can use Wix. You can use like Figma. There's things just using AI platforms or existing platforms that you can do things a lot faster and a lot more cost effective than hiring someone like us to do these things. And then when you're around and then you get to the point where like I need to differentiate and I want to invest in this, then you hire someone. But just standing the stuff up on its own is fine if depending on what your needs are. And you had mentioned, we talked about that at work the other day, where I feel like it can get you like 80% there.
Yeah.
Right. So it's good enough.
Yes.
Like it'll get you up. But if you don't know the coding, anytime you need to make a change or there's a bug, you need to re-spool the whole thing again. Or again, just trying to like, no, this is wrong. Trying to explain to the computer where it's screwing up.
Yes.
And then, you know what I mean? It's a lot of, like you mentioned, a lot of sweat equity, but it gets you about 80%. And for a lot of businesses, like that's all you really need, So it really it's a case by case basis, really.
We were talking earlier about generating content too through it and content ideas. And I haven't done it in a year, so maybe I got to try again. But I was just having it prompt to generate like 20 or 30 ideas to get like 2 or 3 that will work. And going through like a bunch that are just like, oh, this is weird. No, absolutely not. Cross it off for instantly. Okay, we could take this one and we can rework this one and make this work. So it wasn't, and again, maybe for some people they're like, all right, we got 5 great ones, let's roll with it. But for us to have a message that we thought was going to work for us, that was genuine, that was hitting the nail on the head for us, it took a lot of iterations of trying to get AI to give us something. And I will say it was great for stimulating the creativity and getting us out of a roadblock of like, what are we going to write here? It gave us a great base, but it still took time to get it all the way home.
For sure. And I think it does fight against the blank page problem of I have no idea where to start. I don't know what to begin with. So I think getting 20 ideas in 5 seconds is a good way to use your time. And then, of course, you should be making decisions on what makes sense for your brand. It's not going to get it right the first time, but being able to have somewhere to start from, I think is so important for business owners when we have so much on our mind. And we're not just the marketing person. I'm also the finance person, and I do sales, and I update my website, and I record my own podcasts, right? So thinking about all those roles we play, to have some sort of cognitive thought partner is useful.
You know what? This topic I feel like we could talk about for
hours.
hours, but we are running out of time. So I want to give you guys both a chance to kind of leave us with a nugget, okay? So a business owner who's listening to this, what is one marketing habit, be it AI or not, that they should adopt now if they want to grow their business and be consistent?
Consistency. That's it. It's showing up consistently, both from a action standpoint, but also from a brand standpoint. Understanding what's your unique value proposition. How is that weaved into not only the messaging, let's say on your website, but also in how you interact with your customers, right? But then consistency in terms of action, right? Create content on a regular basis, post on a regular basis, show up consistently. That creates like the authenticity and kind of creates the value of that you're a well-established, trustworthy business. And because, again, you mentioned it before, like we have so many things that we're responsible for, from the books to the marketing to this to that. Creating consistency in how you market your business and how you show up for customers and potential customers is, I think, a huge differentiator, because not a lot of businesses do it.
Yeah, we usually do a flurry of activity and say, today I'm going to fix the marketing problem, and then check, and then we move on, right? We don't talk about it for another year.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the best marketing doesn't always feel like marketing, meaning you're sharing something useful for your customers. And you show up consistently. You think about one thing a week. It's like, what would help my customers and make their lives easier? And sharing something authentically, and keeping the mindset of tiny experiments. Everything doesn't need to be perfect the first time. You need to get out and try something, because the more you learn, the more you try, the more you test things, the better you'll get and the better results you'll get.
Awesome. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Chris and Celine, I want to, just thank you for helping us break down a topic that, at least for me, felt a little bit overwhelming in terms of all the different options that we have as business owners.
I thought it was interesting how much we were just talking about traditional marketing too.
Right. It's
true.
I mean, we were sort of pulling back into the AI stuff, but the fundamentals were, based in the fundamentals of marketing.
Right. That hasn't changed. You still need eyes on what you do. So marketing has always required creativity, strategy, and persistence. And tools like AI are now giving entrepreneurs new ways to experiment, maybe learn faster, and reach their customers more effectively. But they do have to remember the basics, it sounds like. So if you've enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, leave us a review, share it with another business owner who's looking to sharpen their marketing approach. I'm Susan Steffen. This has been Incorporate. Until next time, keep learning, keep building, and keep telling your story.